It's quite interesting to see how many people have dropped the ball on the Las Vegas shooting. This shooting is quite fascinating, folks. Out of all the shootings and all the events that we've seen, I haven't seen another shooting so far where we've had such an immediate response, an immediate call of fake. No bodies, no deaths, fake, fake, fake. Within hours of it happening, there was a huge effort to push the concept that this was a fake shooting in which nobody died. But after letting the dust settle and looking at all the evidence, I would suggest that this was in fact a Saudi hit gone wrong, that the weapons were supplied by the CIA, and if the people knew that Saudi Arabia had been the one who carried out this hit and that the weapons were supplied by their own government, there would probably be not only a war against Saudi Arabia, but also a war against the CIA that would erupt on American soil. It really has been fascinating to see how many people have pushed the fake beam on Las Vegas and how much neuro-linguistic programming they're using to do it. There's video clips saying, if you believe there were victims, you're an idiot. If you believe there were victims, you're a moron. Nobody's offering any real proof that there were no victims. All they're saying is, well, I can see no blood on any videos on YouTube, so that means there was no victims. That's really all people need. And there's been a huge push for this, more than any other. I mean, let's face it, we've seen a lot of fake events in the past. Sandy Hook was completely fake. The Boston bombing was completely fake. But that's all it took, was to stage a few fake events, and now there are forces out there that say every event is fake. And this, of course, plays directly into the hands of the fake news meme and the government agenda and the divide and conquer strategy and everything else. It prevents people from looking at things objectively. And in the case of Las Vegas, I mean, think about it. All they had to do was use crisis actors for the interviews and hospital scenes, which are obviously crisis actors. These people have no injuries. It's very obvious to see that. And people buy into the whole fake meme. They buy into the whole concept that nothing happened. Don't look here. It was all about fundraisers. I've actually had people tell me that the reason they do this, folks, is so that the crisis actors can run fundraisers. That's their excuse. That's their motivation. I mean, I can't believe I hear this from people. These fundraisers, what, they raise a few $100,000. This is lunch money for these people who run these psyops, folks. It's got nothing to do with fundraisers. What it's about is distracting the people and keeping them guessing, keeping them arguing amongst each other. But when it is promoted as much as it was with the Las Vegas shooting, then you know that there's something going on behind the scenes here that really wants the people to go down this rabbit hole, well, at least really wants the independent media to adopt this perspective and to be insulted and attacked and ridiculed if they don't. That's a very, very important ingredient to moving people's attention away from the truth. They have to be afraid to look anywhere else because they may get ridiculed by their peers. That's the way it works, folks. Hegelian dialectic, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, problem, reaction, solution. The problem is that the researcher is looking where people don't want him to look, so they create the ridicule and wait for his reaction, which is to stop talking about the problem, and there lies their solution. Tried and true COINTEL diffuse and disrupt operation. Much like the Hans Christian Andersen story of the emperor's new clothes. If you believe the emperor is naked, you must be stupid. Well, I don't do that type of thinking, and I don't do that type of persuasion. But when I have so many people telling me that I must not look in a certain direction and that I must agree with the general consensus and that if I don't, I'm a moron, then I always tend to look where they don't want me to look. And what you find when you look in that direction is that a lot of what we saw in Las Vegas seems very much to be related to the restructuring we are now seeing take place in Saudi Arabia. And the evidence to back that up is actually quite staggering, far more staggering than the evidence to suggest anything was fake. And now you watch how much trolling I get for even daring to suggest that it may not be fake and for daring to think for myself on any type of issue. You just watch and see on the YouTube version of this clip how many trolls and government agents will now attack the clip saying that I'm a shill because I don't buy into their general consensus and prefer to go where the evidence leads me. I'm sure it'll be very revealing and illustrate my point very well. But it's interesting, you know, when you look at it, you can find all the evidence to support it being a hit gone wrong. The fact that just above where Paddock was staying was the Four Seasons, which is owned by a billionaire by the name of Talal, and that the entire floor had been reserved for that weekend. Now, it's very doubtful that anyone other than Saudi royalty would be reserving an entire floor of the Four Seasons, and the best guess is that the person staying there was actually Crown Prince Mohammed, who is the son of King Salman of Saudi Arabia. It's believed, and it's in fact very likely, that Prince Mohammed had left his accommodation at the Four Seasons and had slipped out the back door and gone to the Tropicana to play cards dressed as a normal street person, as Saudi royalty is very much known to do. This is also backed up by the fact that as soon as the events started to unfold on the night of the Mandalay Bay shooting, the FBI stormed the Tropicana and extracted Crown Prince Mohammed from the Tropicana where he was playing cards. There's actually video footage of him being surrounded by a SWAT team and escorted out of the Tropicana. It would explain why there were gunfires reported at various hotels in Las Vegas that night, also why there was firing reported at the airport that night. There's actually a very good possibility that whoever was carrying out the event in the Mandalay Hotel actually started firing at the fuel tanks in the airport. There's every indication to show that these tanks were fired upon, and this was very likely done in an attempt to create a distraction so they could exit the hotel once the hit had gone wrong. It would explain why a window was knocked out facing the airport and why the shots went on for so long and yet there were so few victims for the amount of bullets that seemed to be fired. It would also explain the 3 choppers that left the airport and went dark exactly while the event was happening. George Soros put put options on MGM businesses about a month before the event happened, and the CEO, James Murray, sold millions in shares of his Mandalay stock just a few weeks before the event because he must have known that there was going to be some sort of assassination attempt. I mean, he must have been in on it in order for someone to be able to get that amount of hardware into the building. So he would have known there was going to be some sort of an event go down and that shares were going to drop. And it certainly would explain why they used crisis actors for the hospital scenes and interviews, and why they pushed the concept that it was all fake within hours of the event happening and attempted to create as much confusion as possible. It may even be worth considering that it could explain why a guard went into a crowd with what looked like a machine gun and what many people thought was a shooter in the crowd. Perhaps this was just a guy with a torch to create the concept that there was a shooter in the crowd. Who knows? And sure, that's a long shot and it could have been a complete coincidence, but there is so much confusion surrounding this event, far more than around any other event that we've had recently. And I would suggest that this has been done for a reason, and that is to cover up the true nature of what really happened, which was all very likely related to what we are seeing go down in Saudi Arabia right now.